Tương lai của Cristiano Ronaldo vẫn là chủ đề nóng trên các phương tiện truyền thông. Và ngay trước trận đấu thuộc vòng 1 Premier League gặp Brighton, người ta tiếp tục nhắc về Ronaldo. Lần này, liệu tân huấn luyện viên MU Erik Ten Hag có để siêu sao người Bồ Đào Nha đá chính hay dự bị? Để hiểu rõ vấn đề này, chúng ta có cuộc trò chuyện với bình luận viên John Dykes và nhà báo thể thao John đến từ Mirror để lắng nghe những chia sẻ của họ. Xin chào, tôi là Đức Trường, đây là podcast của Zing News. Hello, Mr. John Dykes and John. Thank you for coming today. And for the first question I would like to send to you, Ten Hag called over the prospect of Ronaldo starting in Martial's absence against Brighton, and at the press conference before the match, Ten Hag said that, "I think we will have solution to sort it out." But it seems that he didn't have many choice.
Yeah, it's a problem ahead of the first game because Martial was the most important striker in pre-season. But Cristiano has only played 45 minutes of pre-season against Rayo Vallecano. So, you know, forget anything else. You worry that that's not enough preparation to play a Premier League game. Elanga has not been showing any kind of goal-scoring form. So, yeah, that is a problem, I think, really. So I think Ten Hag sort of said, look, wait and see on Sunday, didn't he? So you can decide what you want to read into that.
I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously Anthony Martial's injury has really changed things for Erik Ten Hag and what they were planning to do. I think it was very obvious after the pre-season that Martial had, and the fact that Ronaldo hasn't been there, that he was planning to start Anthony Martial up front and play probably with Rashford and Jadon Sancho either side. But now that Martial's out, it gives him a big decision. Obviously, the obvious candidate is Ronaldo, but you know he hasn't really played much football. He hasn't had a lot of training in pre-season the last few weeks. I guess the other option is that he might move Marcus Rashford into the middle to play as a number 9, and then that means that Anthony Elanga can come in out wide. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. And to be honest, I think that the decision is going to be a lot down to Ronaldo's fitness rather than his situation. We know that there's a lot going on off the field with him at Man United and looking to leave and things like that. But I think ultimately it's going to be down to whether Erik Ten Hag thinks he's sharp enough to start a Premier League game after, you know, not really having much of a pre-season with everything that's been going on.
And should Ten Hag let Cristiano Ronaldo start or give him a place on the bench?
Well, I mean, if Martial was fit, right, then there's no way Cristiano will start the game. No way, I don't think, because he hasn't featured in pre-season, because he only played 45 minutes in the last friendly game. So I would expect there's not an issue. But because there's a Martial injury, this becomes an issue. But let's face it, the reason we're talking about this is not a selection issue for one game. It's because it's Cristiano Ronaldo. That's why we're talking about this, because people are interested in this, and people will take two camps, the pro Ronaldo or the anti Ronaldo. But actually, it's nothing to do with that. You know, it's a selection for a game of football, and it's a difficult selection for the manager to make.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think it's you know, Ten Hag's got a bit of a reputation for being quite strict on discipline and things like that. I think that the thing that he might point to is that, you know, it seemed like a bit of a misunderstanding with Ronaldo and some of the other players that left early in the Rayo Vallecano game. So I certainly think now he's made it clear to them that he won't accept that. Moving forwards, I think if there's ever anything like that again, then, you know, he's certainly going to act on it. But yeah, I mean, it's the worst sort of scenario for Erik Ten Hag to have at the start of his reign, really, isn't it? You know, the biggest player in the world, the most famous player in the world, you know, the club legend having, you know, all this stuff going on, all these distractions off the field for a Man United perspective. I think ultimately Erik Ten Hag, I think he'll be quite good at putting all that to one side and just making what he thinks is the best decision for Man United. And I think he'll let him start, and he should let him start if he thinks he's the right man for the job. But the only thing I'd say is whether he might think, you know, he hasn't had a lot of training time in his new system. You know, Man United are going to play a different way. Ten Hag's going to expect Man United to sort of press in a certain way in attack, which, you know, Ronaldo hasn't been doing in pre-season really because he hasn't been playing. So, yeah, I think it's going to have to be a football decision. And I think that, you know, he might go with Rashford as a number 9 and leave Ronaldo on the bench for the first game. But I think, you know, I don't think there should be too much read into that. I think it would just purely be what he thinks is best for the team in that first game, rather than something that's indicates, you know, more of a problem with Ronaldo. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Ronaldo start. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the bench. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the team's announced.
But before you answer the question, remember that Ten Hag has condemned Cristiano Ronaldo for leaving Old Trafford before Manchester United draw with Rayo Vallecano had ended on Sunday, and the manager said it was unacceptable to go early, and he understood that several players joined Ronaldo in doing so. And now, if Ten Hag let Ronaldo start against Brighton, does this make sense? Because from what I have known, Ten Hag is a very disciplined coach.
Well, okay, in his press conference, his most recent press conference, he said it was unfair for everybody to focus on Cristiano Ronaldo because he said other players also left early. So he said, you're right. He said it was unacceptable. And he's right. See, the thing about Ten Hag is he's trying to impose his discipline on a football club which had no discipline. At the end of last season, you remember the game against Brighton? Remember that one? They were awful. I think Ronaldo started that game as well. They were awful. They were destroyed by Brighton, right? So, you know, he knows that he needs to impose his discipline upon the club. But he also knows that anything he does involving Ronaldo will be in the spotlight, will be distorted, will be exaggerated. So it's a very bad situation. I think, quite honestly, and this is not any judgment of Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo is a fantastic player, and he still is a very, very important player. But I think, honestly, Erik Ten Hag probably wishes that he didn't join a club that has Ronaldo, just because he comes from a club in Ajax which has a group philosophy, right? It's not a Galactico club. Also, he is a guy who is very interested in discipline and rules, and he doesn't want anybody to stand out. So I just think that the Ronaldo problem is one that is a headache for him right now.
And then Ronaldo is running out of time, and I think it is very difficult for him to choose a new club, especially with what's happening now. And so, do you agree that Ronaldo should keep playing for Manchester United and enjoy the season for the rest of the time?
Yeah, I think it's hard to see him getting a move now. It's so late in the window. It's so close to the season's starting now around Europe, and I don't think, you know, obviously signing Ronaldo is such a big operation in terms of like the cost involved with his wage and things like that. And I just don't think there's any suitable clubs that are in a position to pay the money to sign him at the moment. Man United have been adamant from the start that they want to keep him, that he's under contract. And I think that, to be honest, if you've got Ronaldo there, you can't really argue with his output on the pitch. You know, you can argue with sort of all the stuff that comes along with Ronaldo and the media presence and the attention that he gets. But ultimately, last season when Man United were having a really poor season, it was Ronaldo that scored so many important goals. He dug them out of so many holes that I think if you're Manchester United or Erik Ten Hag, you'd be foolish not to use him in some way, really, because he's still going to score goals. He's still going to be a big player on the pitch. And I think it's one of those that if he does stay, ultimately throughout his career, he's always delivered on the pitch, no matter what's going on off it. So, yeah, I think I struggle to see him getting a move at this stage. And I think he'll still have a part to play for Man United, even though he has been pushing to leave. I think he'll still have a big part to play for them this season.
Yeah, I think he should do. I think Ten Hag has to be sensible. I think everyone must realize that it's not easy for Manchester United to get rid of Ronaldo. In fact, they can't get rid of him if he doesn't want to go. But he also is finding it difficult to go somewhere else. So both parties have to accept the situation. If I'm Ten Hag, I will say to myself, I want my club before the end of the transfer deadline, the window, to buy a striker, right? We need to bring in a world-class striker. And then if we still have Ronaldo, then he's an option for me. He's an option maybe off the bench or sometimes to start a game, but Ronaldo will have to realize that he is just an option, nothing more than that. And I think he has to accept it because he's contracted to the football club. And I think Ten Hag would be happier if he had another attacking option so he can keep the Cristiano thing quiet. And remember, if Manchester United are able to buy somebody who has a good brand and a good reputation, then they will capture headlines, positive headlines. So people will stop talking about Ronaldo so much.
And finally, against Brighton, how can Manchester United beat them? Let's remember that for the previous match between two clubs, Brighton got a big victory 4-0 in May.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most recent game. But remember, that came at a time when Manchester United were falling apart. Rangnick was a mess. But actually, Manchester United's record against Brighton, if you go further back, is very good, very strong. I mean, I think they won 7. I don't know. Certainly didn't lose in 7 games or something like that. So I think United should be expected to be favourites for the game. But it's tricky because I think you need to have some quality performance by Sancho, by Bruno Fernandes. I think it's very important. I think Brighton don't score a lot of goals. I know they scored 4 last time, but they don't score a lot of goals. So yeah, Manchester United should say, if we defend well, if we play a solid game, we should win.
Yeah, it's a really tricky start for Man United actually, because Brighton, I mean, we like you say, they had that really good win against Man United towards the end of last season, and they were really the form team towards the last few weeks of the season. They played really good football. They played. Graham Potter's a great manager, a really good coach, and he's got that team really settled and well drilled. So they're going to be the sort of team that'll be, they haven't had major changes, so they'll be going into the season, knowing what their task is, what their job is, how they want to play. And then on the flip side, you've got Man United who are trying to play a completely different way than they played before. They've got a few new signings, maybe not as many new signings as Erik Ten Hag would have liked. But they've looked good in pre-season. Man United, they've had some decent performances, and I think they'll be hoping to get off to a good start, obviously. But it's an interesting one because I think Erik Ten Hag at his previous clubs, it's taken a while for his system to for his players to grow into the system and gather that understanding of how they want to play. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how quickly it pays off at Man United. And I think it's going to be a really tough start for them against Brighton. If they can, obviously it's a game they'll expect to win, but if Man United do come away with a win, I think that'd be a very, very good result for them in Ten Hag's first Premier League game.
And so what do you think about the Manchester United summer transfer business?
The transfer summers, it's always difficult to judge a transfer summer until you see the players play. And I don't just mean once, I mean several times. And also, I think a lot of times what we do is we compare clubs. Oh, we had a bad summer because Spurs had a good summer. We had a bad summer because Arsenal did well. Yeah, I think Manchester United needed to get more players. I think anyone who knows that club will look at it and say they probably needed 6 players. But it's not easy to get 6 players in a window. So I would say I think unless they get one more big name, then it's a disappointing window, I think.
It's interesting because they've obviously signed a lot of players from the Dutch league that Erik Ten Hag knows well. And I think time will tell if that's a good move or not, because at the moment, they're the players the manager wants. Obviously, that's what you want. They should fit in well to his style. But if Ten Hag doesn't succeed in this season and they want a new manager next year, then they're stuck with several players that were signed sort of specifically for his way of playing. But I think Tyrone Malacia he's looked good in pre-season. I think that's a decent signing. I think the big question mark is still central midfield, and I have sympathy for Man United really, because the Frenkie de Jong situation has just dragged on for so long, and it seems like they're just caught in the middle with Barcelona's sort of situation financially and the issue with sort of de Jong's wages and deferred payments and things like that. And I think it's clear that Ten Hag wants Frenkie de Jong in there. And central midfield's position they really have for some time needed to upgrade Man United. So I think he's getting to the stage now where they really need to probably start looking at alternatives, but there's not too many players out there that seem to be fitting the bill for United. So yeah, I think it's been a pretty solid transfer window, but they still have that big hole in midfield that they need to try and fill. And yeah, I don't know how the De Jong situation resolves itself, but Man United will be hoping it ends with him holding up a red shirt at the end of the summer, I'm sure.
Regarding on Manchester United, why Ten Hag desperate to sign Frankie De Jong?
Well, he's desperate to sign somebody he knows, somebody whose game is obviously proven in European stage, and I think obviously in the absence of Pogba, then yeah, there's space, there's room in that midfield for a world-class player. So I think Ten Hag will bring in as many players as he can that he knows and trusts, because he's a player who demands specific sort of discipline, mentality, belief from his players. So he will turn to the ones he knows.
And finally, what do you expect about Manchester United this season?
Take another transfer window, bring in some better players, continue to improve, and then maybe in about 1 or 2 years, maybe again they can start to challenge at the top of the table. So this year, maybe a cup, maybe they can win a cup, and then top 4 would be a good finish for them, but I think it's going to be tough.
Wow, this is an interesting sharing. Oh, let's hope that Manchester United can cope with Ronaldo issue. Again, thank you for your time so much. Goodbye. Vừa rồi là những chia sẻ của bình luận viên John Dykes và nhà báo Richard đến từ Mirror. Vậy hãy chờ đến Chủ nhật này để xem Erik Ten Hag sẽ giải quyết bài toán mang tên Cristiano Ronaldo như thế nào.